Hi, welcome back. Today we will discuss why it's so important to be curious and what can happen when you're actually not being curious. And you can say that, why should I be curious about this? And maybe you don't have to, but I see that a lot of people going into sales calls not being curious at all, only being focused on what is it that I would like to tell the customer so that I can convince them that they will buy what I have. But very few people like to be convinced. Maybe not even you. So again, if you could start out being more curious, wow, there could be a chance that you will end up learning new things. But there's also this chance that you will infect the customer with this feeling of being curious about what you have to offer. So today we will dive into why being curious is so powerful and why it's not so easy to really be curious, not just pretending curious, but be truly curious. So I hope you will stick to the end, because I think really this can help you transform how you interact with your customers. And that's basically because I've come to realize that a lot of people show up with a lot of preconceived ideas. And I think the older we become, the easier it is to fall into this trap that we think we know, that we assume we know what the customer wants. And then we go from actually listening to telling and talking and telling and talking, and it simply just doesn't work very well. So what I see is that you can basically operate from two different mental states. You can work from this state of being in pure attention, where you are basically just open for input of data, or you can work from this state of intention, where you're basically, where you have an intention so strong that you start to project that onto the world around you. And again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't master both, but if you go into a customer meeting with a too strong intention, there is a risk that you cannot hear and actually be attentive to what the customer is actually telling you. And again, knowing when to be where, I think that's really where the actual superpower lies. Because I don't want you to just be in pure awareness and have no idea about where you want to go. But on the other hand, if you're too focused on where you want to go and what you want, how much space does that leave for your customer? So knowing when to be there, or maybe know how to oscillate between these two states as you move through a meeting, I think that can really, in a way, transform how your meetings will unfold as you move forward into your career in sales. So again, then you say, but how do I actually master these two states? I think it's about really being aware of when you are in attention and when you're in attention. And I think if you remember some of the things we have talked about when we talk about the 7 C's of satisfaction selling, we actually recommend that you start out by centering. And as a part of that step, you also find out what is the outcome you have for the upcoming meeting. So what is your intention? So I think it's really strong to prepare that so that you know why you're going to have the meeting. But as soon as you show up in the meeting with the customer, it can be very useful to just start with a blank sheet of paper. Basically just say, wow, start from this state of I know nothing. Because from this state, there's nothing that basically can stand between you and the customer. And when you show up like, wow, I know nothing, it's much more easy to ask high quality questions. Opposite to the starting point where you assume you know a customer like this, they need, not very sexy. So we want you to, in a way, be able to go in with no assumptions, no preconceived ideas, so that you can really be curious about the customer's situation, what they want, how they want it. Because again, when you have this childlike curiosity, it would become much more easy for the customer to start to share their ideas and what they want. And that's really what you want in a customer meeting. You want the customer to talk and you to be more quiet. We want you to ask the questions and the customer to actually show up with all the information and the data you need so that you can design a solution that actually fits the customer in front of you and not the customer you thought would be there. Why do a lot of salespeople and adults lose their curiosity? And I think it's because, as you grow, as you mature, you get more and more knowledge about things. And especially if you have a long scientific background training in a field, you accumulate a lot of knowledge and wisdom. And I think that's not bad in itself. But if you try to believe that you now know what the customer actually need before the customer have told you what they think they need, you run the risk of becoming disconnected to the person in front of you. So I see a lot of salespeople having so long experience that they believe that they know what customers want, and now they start to sell to this generalized version of a customer that's actually not fitting any of their customers. So I had this experience with one of my salespeople many years back. And the first year he was in the job, he knew he was new, and he knew that he actually didn't know a lot about the specifics in the areas he was now working. So he went out and he was actually being humble, he was being curious, and customer gave him a lot of information, he built good relationships, and that led to a lot of sales. And after 1 year, because he is very clever, very intelligent, he thought that, okay, now I know this shit. And then he stopped listening, he stopped paying attention, and he went into telling mode. And he started to basically tell the customer what they needed. And immediately we saw a drop in his sales performance. And it took him almost 1.5 years to get out of that cycle of telling and realizing that, telling is not selling. But really going back to this curious, even, it was not that he was not right about what the customer needed. But again, having that knowledge, and then at the same time going in and say, wow, maybe this customer wants something else. Let me start from being curious. And that just took his sales to a very different level, because now, in a way, he had this curiosity, but he also had a foundation which could help him design really clever questions. And that was really where he went to the next level in his sales performance. And I think a lot of salespeople, they don't really get to that third phase because they stay in this illusion that they know they are the specialist. And it doesn't really work. You could ask yourself, but then when I'm really curious, how do I actually design good questions? I think, there's not a simple answer to that question. We have covered asking questions from different angles in a lot of the other episodes. I think basically what can be a useful template to have in mind is that if you can start out by understanding, what is the present situation, but focusing on what's working, be curious about that. That's also why we call that third step in the satisfaction selling method we call it curiosity, because we want you to be curious about what the customer is already doing well. Because when you ask these type of questions and combine it with being curious, it generates a really positive and open state in the customer, which again can help the customer move into the next state, which is really about creating clarity about where the customer wants to go, and being curious about, where would you like to see your business in 2-3 years from now, can be, again, very powerful and create a very deep connection to the customer. Because when the customer have this sense that you are actually really interested in where they would like to go, you build this very deep relationship which build trust and which also build confidence from the customer side that you're actually there to help them. And then again, if you can move your curiosity to, how would the customer like to actually see this happen? Now you will end up with high quality information. You will leave the meeting with some accurate data about the customer's ideas and perception of the world. And that's much more powerful than whatever you could bring into that meeting. So where else in your life would it really be powerful to be curious? And again, I don't know of any place where you could not benefit from this. If you have kids and you interact with them from a position of being curious, very powerful. With your partner, extremely powerful. With your friends, wow. Being curious on their behalf, I think will create really a different relationship. So I think really this is something you can practice not only when you're facing a customer, not only when you're facing your friends, your family, your kids, but imagine for just a few seconds what would happen if you start being curious about what your boss really wants you to do. So if you could show up one Monday morning and be curious about, hi boss, what is it that you really want us to achieve the next 2 months? Imagine what that would do to your relationship with your boss, your manager. I think it would be transformational for both of you. And it will end up leaving you with much more space to actually operate in a more optimal way. Because when your boss really understand that you understand what they want to see happen, they relax. And they release you so that you can actually start to do more useful things and spend less time reporting and doing bullshit activities. Activities that basically create no value. So I think there's many places you can apply this right away. We have come to the end of this episode, and you could ask yourself, so where should I start practicing this? Wow, this is easy. In your next conversation, you can already now think about who is the next person you're going to meet, and what question could you actually ask that person which will lead them to start to share something with you that you actually didn't know about them. And starting from being curious, being attentive, I think is the thing you need to be able to pick up what they're telling you so that you can lead the conversation from their point of view, not from your intention. So, very simple. And I'm not promising that this will be easy, but I think you can do it. See you again next week at the next Personal Selling Weekly.